you. There's a lot of you out here, and I think that some of you could probably do this and tell this story better than I. And Kelly's right. I'm going to give you a lot of numbers. When I practiced on my husband, his eyes kind of glazed over, and he said, yeah, it's good, but boy, it's a lot of numbers. But we have to go through these. I did see, thank you, Kelly, and Dean Rutherford, wherever you escaped to. Thank you and happy birthday. We're thrilled to be here in this venue and share this with you here at the Clinton School. And we're also really happy to be a part of the Blair Center Clinton School of Public Service Woman Celebration of the Year of the Woman. This is apropos that we're here and presenting this report, so that's exciting. And I saw a few hands go up on the Governor's Commission of Women members that are here. I want to say thank you to all of you for the service that you put in and the work that you left behind for all of us to build upon. Thank you. Then, of course, I've got to tell you who's involved with this report. And I'm going to read this because I don't want to leave anybody out. We had a host of people working on this. We started with a practicum team from the Clinton School who did the preliminary research. These were Tricia Flanagan, B.J. Thomas, and Jillian Underwood. The preliminary research was then handed off to a group of academic and community leaders who helped author this report. And all of you that are here today, just kind of wave your hands when I read your name. But included are Joe Blatty, Dr. Sarah Beth Estes, Dr. Angela Kramers, Marie Lindquist, Dr. Janine Perry, who's in Northwest Arkansas, Dean Skip Rutherford, Anna Strong, and Hillary Trudell. And Hillary is also a Clinton graduate, Clinton School graduate. And then a lot of you sitting out here have listened to us talk this through. You've proofread, you've edited, you've advised. So thank you for all of your help on that. I want to give you a little background on the why of this report. The Women's Foundation is a 15-year-old grant-making organization. We were started by 100 women committed to economic security for our state's women. These women saw funding educational projects and programs as a means of ensuring economic security, and the Foundation continues to follow this mandate in its grant-making today. When I came to work at the Foundation in 2009, the board was really interested in being more strategic with its grant making and really focusing its efforts. So it was then that we started a search for data on women, the status of women in Arkansas, and especially as it pertained to the educational status. Well, what we quickly learned was that data is scarce and it's hard to come by in a lot of cases. And it was during this search that we found the 1973 report. We started looking for an update of that report, and we couldn't find it, so we thought, okay, let's just take this on. Somebody's got to start. We've got to look at these numbers. Let's update it. Well, I will tell you that in our further research while we were working on it, we did come upon, and I think Barbara's holding a copy, of a 2000 report that was written. It was authored by Janine Perry, and with help from the Institute for Women in Policy Research on the status of women in Arkansas. It was a broad report and included a lot of issues that were not included in the 73. So we stuck with our decision to take this 73 report and do a strict comparative analysis of 1973 to today, so that we would have some base numbers that we could really use to inform our grant making. During that process, we learned that we needed to share these numbers because all of us need to hear these numbers. So that's why you have this report here today. Our biggest challenge when we were writing this report was sticking to the 73 report. And I think that's why the 2000 report grew so large because there are so many issues under the topics of education, employment, state government, politics that impact women that the reports kept getting big and big. So again, our challenge was, let's stick to the 73 report, which you can find in the back of your book, and let's update just those facts that were within that book. That'll give us a true snapshot of today. Okay, so let's look at the report. And hang on, again, it's going to be a lot of numbers. Okay, I'm going to start, though, by asking you some questions. And in your head, think if it's then or now. And we'll touch on the answers as we go through the report. Okay, in employment, there are two categories in which women lead men: poverty and unemployment. Is that then or now? Education. One woman serves on the Board of Trustees for the University of Arkansas, one at Arkansas Tech University, and no women on Arkansas State University's board. Then or now? Politics. There is only one woman serving as county judge. Then or now? And then in child care, the biggest problem facing working mothers is the lack of high-standard, affordable daycare facilities for their children. Then or now? Okay, let's find out. This is the fun part. The 1973 report focused on the influx of women into the labor market in Arkansas and the fact that women weren't receiving an equal share of economic rewards in the state. In 1973, we see women comprising 38% of all workers, and they were earning 60% in comparison to their male counterparts. In 2011, 47% of all workers are female and earn 82% compared to men. Now that's progress. The 73 report also looked at upper and lower ends of the income scale for all workers and showed women predominated at the lower end of the income distribution and men at the higher end. In 2011, we can see that that pattern still exists. The 1973 report noted that it was the type of work women do that accounts for their relatively low income. In this report, we looked at 4 of the occupations in which women were most populous, and we saw that these remain those in which women's median earnings are among the lowest. That's a lot of speak to say we're going to look at apples to apples in occupations that are mostly populated by women. You can see that the pay gap still exists. We see this gap in every occupational category, regardless of the gender representation of the occupation. Let's look at a couple. For men, the food prep, this was the only one where they dipped below 20,000. And then here are the higher level positions. You'll notice that the pay gap exists all across the board. Okay, that first then or now question. There are 2 categories in which women lead men: poverty and unemployment. The answer is then. Today, women still lead in poverty, 21% of women, but women and men's unemployment rates are the same at 8.69%. Okay, moving to education. At the time of the 73 report, women dominated the education profession, yet leadership roles lagged far behind those of their male counterparts. Since that time, women have made a significant gain in numbers as secondary principals and a small gain as superintendents. I want to point out that the superintendents on the 73 side, there were 3 women, and that was not even 1%, so it doesn't even show on there. And then also with my limited math skills, when I was putting together this slide, superintendents, there's 42 women currently. So doing math, 3 and 73, 42, that's 1 a year in 40 years. If we do that, if we continue that, in another 40 years, we still won't be at parity. Okay. Salaries for women in higher education continue to be less than their male counterparts, despite a growing number of women rising through the ranks. I will say that academic attainment for women has increased, with the majority of college degrees in Arkansas being conferred to women. In 2012, 70% of associate degrees and 59% of technical certificates were earned by women. Although women earn the majority of bachelor's degrees in this state, the actual number of degrees earned is well below the national average. Only 26% of Arkansas young adults ages 25 through 34 hold a college degree. That ranks us 49th. For Arkansas women, only 19% have completed a college education of 4 years or more. Okay, our then and now question. There is 1 woman serving on the Board of Trustees for University of Arkansas, 1 on Arkansas Tech University's board, and no women on Arkansas State's. That's current. In 73, there were none. "40 years. Arkansas state government remains the largest single employer in the state. In the 73 report, it states that that state government was the largest employer of women. When we were doing our research, Walmart is the 2nd largest employer in the state, but we couldn't find the number of women that work for Walmart in Arkansas. So I can't definitively say that state government still remains that, but what we do know is that 63% of state government workers are women. Since the 73 report, employee grades within state government have changed. In 2009, the Uniform Classification and Compensation Act was amended and the old grading system was replaced. In 1973, and I'll say this slowly, it's a lot of numbers, 56% of the bottom 5 grade level positions were held by women. Today, that number is 69%. I'll say that one again. In 73, 56% of the bottom 5 grade level positions were held by women. Today, that number is 69%. In 73, 3.6% of the top 6 grade levels were held by women. Today, that number is 33%, so we have made progress there. 2 women and 41 men held department or agency director positions in 73. Today, 32 women and 73 men hold positions at this level. In politics, while women are still underrepresented, there has been progress in some areas. As of October of last year, there were 8 women in the 35-member state Senate, compared to 1 in 73. And there are 22 women in the 100-seat State House of Representatives, compared to 2 in 1973. There is still only 1 woman holding a constitutional office. Of the 7 offices, there's 1. But, bright note, for the first time in the state's history, we will have 3 women serving on the Arkansas Supreme Court. Then and now question. There is only 1 woman serving as a county judge. Then or now? It is now. Marilyn Edwards is a county judge in Washington County. Overall, little progress has been made at the county level. There's the one woman county judge. There are no women as sheriff. We did have one woman, Judy Pridgeon, Saline County, that was sheriff from 1992 to 2000. Under legal rights, Arkansas now provides women with a few more protections than it did in '73. Some laws that treated women differently have been repealed or amended. Among these developments are court-ordered child support is now strictly enforced in Arkansas. Women may now work in mines. That was on the books that we couldn't work in mines until 2005. Women may no longer be excluded from jury duty just because they're a woman. Different penalties for committing prostitution and patronizing a prostitute have been eliminated. Standards for workplace safety apply equally to men and women. And the Arkansas Civil Rights Act of 1993 protects against discrimination because of gender. Our update also includes some recent federal laws which have impacted women in our state, such as the 1974 Equal Credit Opportunity Act and the Lilly Ledbetter Act of 2009, which addresses unfair pay conditions. Okay, we're moving on to health. And remember, we're sticking to the '73 report, so I know all of you are like we were. You're thinking of all these issues that impact all of these areas, and you want to know more. This is step one. We're starting with the updating '73. Women in health professions and health issues unique to women have changed significantly since '73. In 1972 in Arkansas, women dominated the nursing profession, 99%. They shared equally with men in laboratory and health technology positions and were nearly absent from the ranks of physicians. Only 3.5% of our physicians were women then. There were no female dentists, and 5.4% of pharmacists were women. That year, there were 22 women enrolled at UAMS. This shows you the nursing profession as it is today. You'll see that women continue to be the predominant workforce, except for nurse anesthetists are the one that we lag behind. While women have gained tremendously in all these categories, they remain the minority in all of them except nursing. Women today make up 91% of all nurses and 23% of all physicians. This slide shows you women in all the specialties across the medical professions. And we mentioned earlier about there being no dentists, 5.4% pharmacists. Today, we have 15% are women dentists, 28% pharmacists, 37% veterinarians, and 23% chiropractors. So we have made progress in those. And I can tell you, remember the 22 women at UAMS? Today, well, last year, UAMS graduated 620 females out of an 872 total class. So, looking up there. Employment policies, insurance benefits, leave programs, other issues relating to pregnancy and childbirth were of great concern in 1973. They remain so in 2013. To hit just a few of the highlights, Arkansas has no laws beyond the Federal Family Medical Leave Act that guarantee job protection or leave for new or expecting parents who work in the private sector or for the state. Arkansas does not guarantee paid sick leave through state law that can be used for a worker's own illnesses, to care for an ill family member, or for personal or family medical visits. Now, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act improves policies related to women's health insurance coverage. Today, some health insurance plans in Arkansas charge women up to 81% more than men. Arkansas has not banned gender rating. We have not banned gender discrimination through state law. The Affordable Care Act prevents plans from gender rating beginning in January 2014. Currently, Arkansas does not require health plans to cover maternity services. These services will be available beginning in 2014 as part of meeting the requirements of a benchmark plan covering 10 essential health benefits. Newborn care will also be covered. That's progress. The need for child care has grown since 1970. In that year, 10.2% of Arkansas families were headed by women. In 2011, 28%. In 1970, 45% of mothers of children under 18 were in the labor force. 72% in 2011. Also in 70, 38% of mothers of children under 6 were employed. We are now at 57%. Then and now question. The biggest problem facing working mothers is the lack of high standard, affordable daycare facilities for their children. It's both. Trick question. A 2008 study by UALR's Institute for Economic Advancement noted at that time, in 2008, there were over 170,000 child care spots available, but only 23% of those met accreditation standards. In terms of accessibility and quality, overall, the study showed that for children ages 0 through 13, there were 13.8 children for every available quality slot. Now, one bright spot in this has been the federally funded Head Start program that provides comprehensive early childhood services to over 10,000 children and families in all Arkansas counties. Between the Head Start and the Arkansas Better Chance program, about 65% of the nearly 48,000 3- and 4-year-old children living below 200% poverty are being served. I'm going to let you read these. The 73 report offered these quotes by 2 public officials to demonstrate the gulf in attitudes about women. In the update, the public image section includes data from the 2011 Arkansas poll, which reflects Arkansans' perspectives about women in politics. In the poll, over 2/3 of those polled disagreed with statements comparing women unfavorably with men. The fact that 2/3 or more Arkansans disagreed with statements about men's superiority in politics suggests that residents of our state are more likely to affirm Governor Bumper's perspective on women's state status than Senator Jones. That's a very good thing. From the 73 report, we find this quote: reflected in these 2 statements is the gap between what has been and what should be. Also reflected here is the fact that virtually all status of women problems are, to varying degrees, problems of attitude and ideas, culture and customs. The foundation began this research with a singular focus, better informing our grant making. But in the process, we saw that these numbers, this report, even though we know it's narrow in scope, needed to be shared with a wider audience. What this report shows us is that Arkansas still has a way to go in improving the status of women in Arkansas in almost every area: employment, education, politics, state government, health. In order to address these issues raised by this report and change these statistics, it's going to take leaders from the public and private sectors, along with nonprofits and community leaders, people at all levels, to generate innovative ideas, create new energy around this topic, and identify different ways of approaching this issue of improving the status of women in Arkansas. Again, it is great to be able to release this report here in the Clinton School of Public Service, a place where thought leaders from these three sectors routinely come together and discuss issues such as this. The Women's Foundation feels it has taken the first step in advancing this issue, beginning the conversation by releasing this very targeted, narrow 1973 report to build upon. We welcome your feedback. We hope you will share it. Today during the Q&A, I hope it's not all Q and it's a lot of sharing. And I think together, with all of us looking at this and discussing this, that we can together create more opportunity for our state's women and girls. And I want to say thank you to all of you for being here to start this conversation. So let's start it.
What a great job. I'll tell you, Diane Blair would be proud of Lynette Watts. She would be very proud. Okay, let's throw it open to questions. Appropriately, we have a man ask the first question. Let's go.
Lynette, how does this compare with others? Are other states being or self-examining like Arkansas is in this sense?
I can't answer that with knowledge, but I would hope so. I do know that other women's funds have done similar reports in their areas, and again, I hope if they're not doing it, that they begin to.
You know, we worked on the report, Bill. We didn't really look at the other states. We really just focused on Arkansas. So I'm sure that, I mean, we'd have to check it, but it'd be great. But it took enough time to get 40 years worth of that. He worked very, very hard. Do you have a question right here?
Okay, so now that we have the data, what's next? What do we do? What do we do as women in Arkansas to make these changes, especially the ones that sound so easy and so common sense? Why haven't they been done sooner? What do we do now?
You got to run for county judge.
Yeah, no, that's right. That was our lunchtime conversation, and I think you'll be declaring your candidacy as soon as you graduate. Yeah. Well, that's one thing. People can step up, more women in leadership positions. I know one thing that the Women's Foundation is looking at is, now that we've got this base report, we want to take each one of these sections and really dive into them and really look at all the issues. You know, I said that we kept having to pull ourselves back and keep the strict focus, which was mostly employment. But there are so many issues that impact employment. So we'll start with education, since that's our what we advance, and take that one, and hopefully we'll have a report, a more in-depth report of education ready for you next year. As I mentioned in my little closing wrap-up, I would love to see some conversations start between the public-private sectors along with community leaders on what we as a larger community could bring to this discussion. and what are some action steps that we could take.
Question, yes, right here. And please wait for the wait for the microphone that's coming at you. It's going to take a little while. Just raise your hand again, please. Got a big crowd here.
I just wondered, I've always been disappointed that Arkansas hasn't ratified ERA. I wondered, is that holding us back in some ways?
That's a sticky wicket. Arkansas has tried several times and has not been successful in getting that ratified. I can tell you, I'm not going to dive into politics, and I think there is a group that is working towards having that reintroduced, and somebody could speak more knowledgeably about that. The Women's Foundation we were honored to be a part of Representative Kathy Webb's interim study on the status of women, and actually got to work on the education piece. And within that report, which, by the way, you can find that report either on the legislative website or on the Women's Foundation website. It's both there. But there is a recommendation in there to reestablish the Governor's Commission on the Status of Women, and it actually outlines some duties. And we as a group decided we would put that forward as a recommendation because it would be a great first step towards that.
Other questions? Yes, we have a question right back over here.
And you guys can make comments too. It doesn't have to be just
There
questions.
have been a number of changes in national policy that have impacted the states. Is that something that this group is aware of, or to see how that worked here in Arkansas?
The number of national policies.
Right, the impact of national policies changes over the years.
We did look at some of those, and I just hit the high points today, and again, we were sticking to the 73 report and updating that. So if a new policy or law has been enacted since, right, we would put that in there. And especially if in the 73 report, the recommendations stated this should be enacted or this step should be taken, then we looked at that and updated that information. Oh, I'm sorry. That's true.
Representative, I'm going to keep calling you Representative Roebuck. You'll always be a representative as far as I'm concerned.
Lynette, thank you for this work. I did want to point out, make sure people don't leave here and think that we're making progress in the Arkansas legislature with women. We were making progress, and we had a record number in 2009 with 31 women, the most we've ever had. And then we went down to 30 in 11. And now, sad to say, we're down to 23. So we are not making progress, and there are some women in the room that ran this last session, and I applaud them, and also some serving legislators. But I'd just like to say, as someone who did run and was there 6 years, that if women don't run, women cannot win. So I encourage you to think about running. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny. I might add, before we get to the next question, that it's fair to say in the report that one of the commissioners on the status of women in 73 was Veda Shedd of Mountain Home, who in 1976 became the first woman in her own right elected to both the Arkansas House and the Arkansas Senate. She broke that barrier and was a member of the commission and won it in rural Baxter and Boone County, which is even more interesting about how she could do it. All right, we had a question, right? Yes, right here.
This is actually an observation. I work for the Girl Scout organization, and there is actually a national campaign right now called To Get Her There, and it's a conversation actually about this very study about the lack of parity in leadership roles. And the biggest takeaway from this campaign is that seeing is believing, and if you don't see women in these leadership roles, then you actually don't believe that you could get there. So this is really a campaign in this current generation to break that parity, and they do have some great information and some great statistics about nationally and other states involved. But I think for me, this study really underscores the work we have to do in this state, and I've been working here in Arkansas for about 4 years now, and I see a lot of good and I see a lot of organizations. I think it really starts in this room and not people just really taking on these leadership roles and challenging them, but also looking at the next generation and encouraging them and bringing them up. We have a lot of great conversations behind closed doors, but there's been a new generations, we're not looking down at the girls below us and bringing them up. And I really think that there are approximately, there's about 269,000 girls in school age right now. And are they hearing these messages that we're talking about? And if they're not, what can we do as the people who do seem to care about it and who seem to be mobilized? Why aren't we getting around the table and coming up with solutions and really setting the example? I think that that's what's missing really, truly for this state, but there's a lot of potential, and because of the services that we have and quite the accessibility we have to get to all parts of our state, we could be doing a lot more. We could be setting the tone for the rest of the country.
Amen, sister.
Let me just say that I know that we're going to have to conclude, but Lynette's going to be here for a while, so I know a lot of you have individual questions, and I know I want to hear some stories from the 73 commissioners. But 2 points that I want to raise. Number one, several Clinton School students were involved in this project, and I appreciate their work, including some alumni. Anna Strong is here. Dylan Perry, one of our students, is involved with it. Others. Now, this is under the leadership of Marie Lindquist, who runs these field services programs, and it links Clinton School students with organizations throughout the state. So I just want to give Marie a round of applause. She really does great work, and our students. And one of Diane Blair's legacies is the Blair Center at the University of Arkansas. It's a fabulous organization. It does good work. And we have as Lynette mentioned, we're partnering with them this year on a year called the Year of the Woman. And on February the 6th, the scholars from the Blair Center will be here to release the results of a comprehensive national survey. Much of it focused on women. Much of it focused on, well, you see a woman president in your lifetime. And some of it focused on a woman that we know who people are talking about running for president. So I encourage you to come and see this information. The numbers are not just a regular poll. There's an overemphasis and an overpolling on African Americans and Latinos that provide a more representative sample. So I've had a preview of the numbers. I think by the nature of this crowd, I think you would really like them. I hope you will come on February the 6th. Ladies and gentlemen, Lynette Watts.
One more thing in closing. You got the report of the 1973-2013. We also brought with us copies of Hillary Trudell's report on examining. Was that in your seat as well? Okay, so they're in the back. If you wanted one of those, please take that with you when you go.
Congratulations, and thank you so much for doing this work and bringing it to our attention. I would like to bring it to several other groups I know about. How are the resources to reach copies of this report, someone to come and tell us about it, just as you have? Thank you.
Our website is here, womensfoundationarkansas.org, and there's a link to my email on it. And this is Lori Barr. Lori, stand up. This is 100% of our staff right here for the Women's Foundation. So if you need something, one of us is who you would go through, but we would be happy to work with you to come talk about this.
Thank you all very much. Have a safe trip home and good evening.